back on One True Podcast. Alongside me, as always, is my good friend John Warner. Johnny, how are we doing today?
Hey, Bryce. Good, man.
Good.
Good to have Jenny on.
Yes, we've got Jenny Carlson of the Oklahoman. Jenny was just telling us that since '99, she's been writing stuff for the Oklahoman, long before the Thunder even were around.
I outlasted Bob Stoops. I did not think that would happen after he got on that role. I was like, he's just going to be here until, forever, and I figured there would come a time when he would outlast me. Lo and behold, I outlasted him. Who knew?
Yeah, I outlasted Kim Mulkey, and I never thought that would happen. So I thought she'd put me in the grave, but moving on. Jenny, thanks for coming on with us. So, guys, the Big 12 serves up a pretty good game this Saturday in Stillwater. Top 25 matchup, unbeaten teams. Number 21 Baylor will travel up to Stillwater to play number 19 Oklahoma State. Though our man John Warner here picked Baylor's upset over Iowa State last week. How about that?
Impressive.
Well, as Tom Petty says, even the losers get lucky sometimes.
Nice. It was still eye-opening for a lot of us. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State has a pretty good resume. Road win over Boise State. And last week, the Cowboys dispatched Kansas State. That was a ranked K-State team, 31-20. So for you two, I mean, who's the more surprising team here? And, does that more surprising team win on Saturday? I mean, who do you like in this game? Jenny, we'll start with you.
Yeah, probably I would say the more surprising team is Baylor. Obviously a year ago was a big struggle. The COVID years, you kind of have to consider that everybody was dealing with a lot of craziness and unexpected twists and turns, but obviously that it was a struggle for the Bears. And so I think the fact that, beating Kansas, no surprise there. I'm a Kansas grad. I can say with a clear conscience, everybody beats Kansas. But but then to beat Iowa State, which, I think that's pretty clear that the Cyclones have got, I don't know what the issues are, but, to really not be competitive against Iowa a few weeks ago, you sort of sense that something might be amiss, but obviously that's a good win for Baylor. To hold them off in the end, I thought that was really impressive. So I'm much more surprised by Baylor. Oklahoma State, the way they've gotten to 4-0 has been a little bit weird, but I would say as far as the fact that they are both 4-0, I would say Baylor's the more surprising one to me. I've got Oklahoma State winning. I like the fact that they're at home. I think what they did in the first half against K-State was more reminiscent of what we thought we might see the entire first 4 games. Why we haven't, we can talk about that. But I think it showed that they might start to be coming into their own, and yet they've figured out ways to win without that being their way every game up until that point. So I got Oklahoma State, but I think it's a heck of an interesting matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, Johnny, how about you?
Yeah, I got to say, I did not expect a top 25 matchup going into this season, this weekend. I think Baylor has been the more surprising team, although Oklahoma State winning at Boise State is very impressive. But I'm going to take Oklahoma State in this game. I've covered about 11 games, I think, up in Stillwater. I have yet to see Baylor win.
Yeah, so this is an interesting little nugget, Jenny. So John, as the beat writer, Baylor has won twice there, Johnny, right?
15 and 19.
And both times I made that trip solo because John, one time he was in the hospital. That's a pretty good excuse. And the other time your mother-in-law passed away, right,
Yes.
Johnny? Yeah. Yes. So I was flying solo. And so that pretty much clinches, since we're both going on Saturday, that Oklahoma State's going to win.
I'm a pretty incredible jinx for them in this matchup in Stillwater.
Yeah.
Does Dave Aranda have any ability to pay you off, John, and keep you in Waco?
Well, if he watches this podcast, he might try that.
Yeah,
exactly.
no doubt.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And Baylor has taken some really good teams to Stillwater. I mean, we saw Robert Griffin III, who will be in the box calling the game on TV on Saturday. We saw him up there, I believe, in his Heisman season even. And Oklahoma State, which they were good that year, but they weren't as good as they have been in some other years. They just dismantled Baylor that year. So that was, there have been some surprising results in Stillwater for the Bears. And I'm not sure you can pin that on any one thing. But I do think Oklahoma State has got a really good defense. I mean, it's so weird in this state in Oklahoma to have both teams leaning on their defenses. For years, that has not been the case at either school.
Right.
And here they are both doing it. But Oklahoma State's defense, they've had some injuries. They're missing some pieces, and yet they just continue to play really solid defense. And I think that's a good winning strategy in the Big 12 right now, is to have a good defense. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because the matchup is so surprising, would I be surprised at a Baylor win on Saturday? No. But I do think that Oklahoma State's defense is, they just seem capable of handling a lot of things right now.
Let me add this. RG3 was 0-3 up there. None of the games are close, but that was not as memorable as Bryce Petty tripping
over the 5-yard line.
Over the 5-yard line, a wide open field in front of them, and it went downhill from there. That was a great Baylor team, and it went straight downhill.
Yeah. Baylor fans certainly won't forget about that. The turf monster got Petty on that one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're all in agreement here, which pretty much clinches that Baylor's probably going to win. But Jenny, let's talk a little bit more about the Cowboys. So to me, it has always seemed like a very unique marriage with Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State there. He's obviously an OSU guy, former quarterback, handed off the ball a lot to Barry Sanders. He's the second longest tenured coach in the Big 12 behind Gary Patterson at TCU. And, Oklahoma State hasn't missed a bowl game since his first year there. They've had some really good teams, but there always just seems to be this little undercurrent of unrest. Some controversy, occasionally as well.
Does it feel like we're due for that again at Oklahoma State? Like, this is a time.
Who knows? Gives y'all something to write about. So how is he kind of viewed among Oklahoma State fans? And does he need a second Big 12 championship to get a little more leeway up there?
I do think there are definitely a lot of folks that would like to see Oklahoma State just get to the championship game in the Big 12. I mean, they haven't made a championship game since it returned to, being played in the Big 12. And you look at all the teams that have. I mean, Baylor's been there, TCU, Texas, Iowa State. The list of teams, obviously Oklahoma is the mainstay on the other side of the ledger, but Oklahoma State, even with some really good teams, you think back to the year that Mason Rudolph, James Washington came back, they really felt like that was going to be a team that could contend for a championship in the Big 12. And then who knows, you see what happens after Big 12 play, but that didn't materialize. That team, sort of failure to launch. So I think getting to Arlington would be a huge step for this program. I'm not saying that to suggest that Mike Gundy's job is in jeopardy or anything like that. I think that it's pretty clear that his new bosses, Mike Holder, the athletic director, retiring in July, Burns Hargis, the university president, retiring at the same time. So new president and Casey Schrum, new AD and Chad Weiberg. Both of them have voiced very strong support for Mike Gundy. So I don't think that there's any reason to think that they are put off by him. But there are definitely Oklahoma State fans that, you talk about never a dull moment, that a lot of that goes back to Mike Gundy, whether it was the rant 14 years ago, whether it was the situation with Chuba Hubbard and all the players on social media a summer ago. There's and even if it's just been times that he's seemingly played footsie with other schools, including Baylor. He played footsie with Baylor at one point. Not that that's bad, but it was SEC teams for a while, and then he even did it in the conference. So it's just I think it's maybe not anything giant, but I do think there have been things that if you talk to OSU fans, some will put more weight than others on those things. If you talk to some of the bigger money boosters, the decision makers, I think there was definitely a faction, especially last year when the Chuba Hubbard near player revolt happened, that I think there were some people that said, you know what, we love the way that this program has won consistently, but there are just too many times that Oklahoma State football is in the national spotlight for reasons that make people go, what in the heck is going on over there? So I think there was definitely a time, Barry Trammell, their columnist, wrote about it at the time. There was definitely a stretch where Mike Gundy's job was not assured, and it wasn't because of anything in the win-loss column. It was that factor. So it is a very interesting relationship he has with OSU fans. There's no doubt that nobody else has been any more successful on the field than Gundy's teams. I mean, they've won at a clip that, it'll take a long time for anybody to surpass that. They've, come ahead at a time that, they could have easily fallen behind and instead have made great strides. So there's a lot, if you're an OSU fan, to like about what he's done, but there's definitely also some things I think that have stuck in people's craw and they're not too happy about.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, to those OSU fans, I would say be careful what you wish for when you think about like Texas and Mac Brown, maybe. That's been kind of an adventure ever since Mac left. Now, maybe Mac didn't bring the controversy that Gundy does, but I will also say this, I think Gundy was on the cutting edge of the rebirth of the mullet. Because you're like actually seeing people walking around with it now.
It's funny you mentioned that. I know you're joking in a way, but the truth is that one of the things that I think maybe gets overlooked kind of by his somewhat goofiness sometimes is that he is kind of cutting edge in a lot of ways. I mean, OSU, they've pioneered some things or sort of leaned into some things that other people haven't when it comes to, even like a couple years ago, they sort of leaned into sleep technology, like how much sleep do you guys get? How does that affect performance and those sorts of things? Everybody obviously, and this is a small thing, but everybody obviously uses those giant boards on the sidelines to signal in plays. That was an OSU thing that started in Stillwater. So there've been a lot of things. Even like taking rules and kind of pushing the edge of rules. You'll see, I'm sure it'll happen on Saturday when the offense subs out and the defense has a chance to sub in. OSU they do this to a T. They wait until the very last minute, and then their defensive lineman who's subbing out slowly makes his way towards the sideline. It's not until he gets there that his replacement slowly makes his way towards his spot. And of course, the referee's just standing there waiting until they're, ready to go. I've seen teams had to take timeouts, take delay of game penalties. Stuff like that Oklahoma State's just trying to find ways to, be at the forefront of as many different areas as they can, because, they know they don't have some of the tradition, that some schools can draw on. They don't have some of those inherent things that, an OU, a Texas, USC, whoever you want to throw out there, sort of those traditional powerhouses. Whether they're up or down right now is another question, but, they're fighting against some of that. So they've really always tried to be, I think, on the forefront, or for a long time on the forefront of some of those things in college football.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that other Oklahoma team. It's no real big shocker that they're sitting undefeated as well as OSU and Baylor. But it hasn't been all sunshine and lollipops in Norman. Certainly not for Spencer-Rattler. Saw that he faced some boos last week in that West Virginia game. Some chants of "We want Caleb." I guess the redshirt freshman Caleb Williams there. So Jenny, you're around this team a lot too. Do you expect Lincoln Riley to stick with Rattler? And do you think there's a segment of OU fans that would like to see Tanner-Mordecai back in town?
Probably, yes. After he threw 7 touchdowns for SMU, there's probably people are like, see, Lincoln Riley doesn't know anything about quarterbacks. Forget those 2 Heisman trophies and all those guys starting in the league. We don't believe in him after all.
What have you done for me lately?
Exactly right. Now, there's definitely discontent amongst OU fans, no doubt about it. And sort of in the same way, I'm surprised that at the way OSU has gotten to 4-0, I'm surprised at the way OU has gotten to 4-0. I expected them to be 4-0, but I didn't think it would be with a 16-13 win against West Virginia, a 23-16 win against Nebraska. I mean, these are scores that we've seen, or haven't seen for, I don't know, and the Big 12 hasn't happened for years and years and years. SEC is a little more used to it, but that hasn't happened around here very often. So that is a surprise. And it's not sitting well with a lot of OU fans, even though this defense that they've got is playing great. I mean, this is the defense that OU fans have wanted for years. So it's a question of, do you like winning games 44-41 or 16-13?
Right.
So I think as it relates to Spencer Rattler, yes, he's drawing a lot of the criticism, but really their biggest offensive question mark is their offensive line. When I think about the list of offensive issues, you got to go down a little ways before I get to Spencer Rattler. I know he's an easy target when you're a fan sitting in the stands. I understand that, but it's the offensive line that I think is really the thing holding up this offense right now. Can they give Rattler enough time to find receivers? Can they give Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray, 2 running backs that seem fairly talented? Can they give them enough room to actually operate? Lost Creed Humphrey to the NFL. He's now starting in Kansas City. So obviously a huge loss there at center, no less. So you're replacing him, a couple other guys that were on that line a year ago that are not. And I think they're just, the weird thing is that OU's offensive line coach, Bill Bedenbaugh, is not one to throw a lot of rose petals on anybody's path. He's always very, critical, always, what more can we improve on? And in the preseason camp, I think he talked maybe just once, no more than twice, but essentially was all this talk about how great this line looks, how he felt like this could be an offensive line like they had a few years ago. 2018 was what he referenced. That was a line with Cody Ford, who's now in Buffalo, Ben Powers, who's now in Baltimore, on and on down the line. Just a great offensive line. And yet they come out and they just can't seem to find a rotation that they like, that is effective. They've struggled in both the pass game and the run game. So until they get some stuff figured out there, I just think this offense is going to be in a little bit of a muck and mire until they can run or give the quarterback, whoever it is, a chance to see his receivers.
Yeah. Turns out an O-line makes a difference, doesn't it, John? We've seen that at Baylor this year.
Yeah, we've seen some bad ones the last few years. But yeah, this one looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's much improved.
Much improved. Iowa State, they didn't play quite as well against them, but that's the first good defense they've really seen. And, they still did okay. They need to do better, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, so Jenny, we are selfish around here, and we like to think about our stomachs. We usually try to close with talking about food. So, John
Awesome.
and I have been up there to Stillwater lots of times, and it's a long drive, but it makes it worth it when you get that Hideaway pizza. So,
Nice.
Yeah, what is someplace that's like off our radar that we need to like check out in Stillwater?
Well, I am, because we drive in and drive out regularly, I don't eat a lot in Stillwater, but I am told by my coworkers that there's a Thai food restaurant in Stillwater that is off the charts good. And as you were talking about food, I decided I would double check myself. And I think it's Thai Loco, but it
Okay.
might also be Thai Cafe. So before Baylor fans, if you're going, before you make any decisions, tweet at one of our OSU writers, either Jacob Unruh or Scott Wright, and ask them which one it is, because there's a definite favorite amongst the writers who are in Stillwater a little more often and maybe have to eat every once in a while. But there's a Thai place up there that I'm told is really, really good.
Wow, you wouldn't think Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Thai food, but
I know. It's not exactly the natural, but yeah, I'm not telling you to go have seafood in Oklahoma or anything like that. But
it's so close to the coast.
Thank you, Jenny.
no, I won't do
Thanks for
anything.
that tip.
Well, Jenny, thanks again for hopping on with us. We'll see you up there. Are you going to be at that one, or are you going to be at OU?
I am going with OU this week to Kansas State, but we'll definitely keep an eye, because the K-State OU game is a 2:30 kickoff, and so then an evening game for Baylor and OSU. So I will definitely be keeping an eye, because curious to see what happens. Even though I'm picking the Cowboys, I really have no idea. I think it's going to be a heck of a game.
Well, I'm sure our paths will cross again before the Sooners, bolt for the SEC. So.
Yeah, and Jenny, we'll avoid the seafood.
Yeah, thank you. And oh, by the way, OSU and Baylor, Big 12 brethren to the end. So
There you go.
we're now living in both the SEC and the Big 12 around here.
Right.
I'm okay with, to be honest with you. I mean, I hope the rivalry between the two survives, but the fact that we got some new places to go, explore, some teams to see play, I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, John and I were the same way when we were actually rooting for Memphis and Tulane to join the Big 12, and you can figure out why.
And it wasn't for football, really.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I may know as many good places to eat in those two places as I do in Stillwater.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks again, and enjoy your game on Saturday, and we'll see you down the road.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jenny.